परीक्षित जी, सबसे पहले तो बताऊं कि मैं रमा पांडे हूं और आपके पिताश्री बीबीसी लंदन से ही निकले थे, वहीं मैं अपने 10 साल गुजार के आई हूं अनुवाद की दुनिया में, और अब मैं फिल्म बना रही हूं, थिएटर कर रही हूं। मुझे सबसे पहला आश्चर्य इस बात का है कि आप खुद हिंदी में समा गए, हिंदी में करे थे, किताब को हिंदी में होना चाहिए था। आई डीपली फील इट हैज सो मेनी कनोटेशंस। अब मैं जो पढ़ने जा रही हूं, एक औरत पढ़ रही है, एक वो कहते हुए भी गले में आंसू है कि अगर मैं गालिया होती और अगर तुम मेरे साथ ये करके जाते तो मैं तुम्हें कैसे माफ कर पाती और तुम अपने आप को कैसे माफ कर पाए। ये एक बहुत बड़ा सवाल है। अब आई एम रीडिंग व्हाट ही रोट एंड he's been very honest about it. What I like about Parikshit and his pen, that he's been very honest. And Galia perhaps reflected in his role in Pavitra Papi, which was the first film I ever saw of Pandey, where he was an Achik. बहुत सारी बातें, and I'll read out what he's written. I often spent my evenings in the library of foreign literature, situated just off the Red Square. One day, while reading Henrik Ibsen, I came upon a poem that hit me like a sledgehammer. To a man his native land, और करें जरा इस पोएम पर. To a man his native land is as unto the tree and the root. If there his labor fills no want, his deeds are doomed, his music mute. जब आप अपनी जमीन से दूर हो जाते हैं, सब कुछ हाथ से गया. And then in autumn इतना आया है परीक्षित की किताब में. He is obsessed with autumn, and I am Bahu of Kashmir. I know which autumn he is talking about, which has arrived in Kashmir right now. And then in autumn of the same year, Nehru came to Moscow. I have already recounted the story of my meeting with him. He admonished me for thinking of settling down in Russia for good. He heard me out, but lost his temper. He said, India is your mother. Do you want to disown your mother? अच्छा, बहुत जगह बहुत सारे आपने परीक्षित जी, मैं अपने क्वेश्चन बीच में डालते जाती हूँ क्योंकि समय है कम. आपने बहुत सारे कारण बताएं कि मैं इस मारे छोड़ के आया, पर मैं आपको आपके कारण बताऊंगी क्योंकि मैं रही हूँ बाहर कि क्यों आप छोड़ के आए. I picked up Nehru's The Discovery of India and read it from cover to cover. About India he wrote, she is very lovable and none of her children can forget her. Wherever they go or whatever strange fate befalls them, they don't forget India. I brooded about what Nehru had said to me and what I had read in his book. And at the back of my mind was Ibsen's poem. No doubt Russia was beautiful and the topics were hot and dusty, but if I settled down in Russia, would my labor fill any want of this country? In this country, Russia was the Soviet Union. अब आप पढ़िए क्या था रशिया, कहाँ से कारण बन जाते हैं, where the reasons start arising. Russia was the Soviet Union in those days. This is a very beautiful incident. Russia was the Soviet Union in those days. I don't know what Russia is like now, but in the Soviet days, it was not an easy place to live in. He writes in the same line, the society was riddled and fear. The society was riddled with fear. The CPSU, the Communist Party, ruled with an iron fist, and there was no freedom of expression. No artist can live in any country where there is no freedom of expression. I used to work as an announcer in the Hindi service of Moscow radio to make a quick buck, which इनके father भी करते थे BBC में. It dished out nothing but blatant propaganda, as did all the other radio channel stations and even films. Here comes the incident. Andrei Tarkovsky, sorry, I hope I'm getting the name all right. Andrei Tarkovsky, I remember, showed his film, The Childhood of Ivan, considered by many to be a masterpiece of a cinema. For the first time in our institute, he was booed and parodied at the instigation of the teachers and professors by the students of the institute. He wept, and he wept. Director ro raha tha. He was pulled up by the state and the film was banned. He had to ultimately migrate to the West to make the sort of films that his soul and his spirit prompted him to. There was no question of saying anything against the system in the USSR. It was closed, asphyxiating society. One had to mind the line. That also started. But the people were wonderful. Now you listen to this, most beautifully written. But its people were wonderful, and Galia was the epitome of Russian womanhood. And I would agree with that, because हमारे यहाँ बहुत सारी ऐसी बहुएं कश्मीर में हैं. But the people were wonderful, and Galia was the epitome of Russian womanhood, and the forest and the mother nature was captivating, and so were its seasons. And I had fallen for the first time in my life in love with all of them, But Nehru and his book, again comes the Nehru, but Nehru and his book, The Discovery of India, had turned me into something of a patriot, and not a chauvinist, but a patriot. I was torn between my love for Russia and my duty towards India. I still couldn't help considering adopting India as a surrogate mother and living with Galia for the rest of my life, but then something happened that made me change my mind conclusively. Here is that incident where the writer says, Parikshit Sahni says, conclusively मैंने क्यों छोड़ा रशिया? और ये मैं चूंकि 10 साल उतार के आई हूँ, इसीलिए मैं कहूँगी कि ऐसा होता है हाइब्रिड जनरेशन के साथ वहाँ लंदन में भी जो रशिया में हुआ. People in the Soviet Union in those days, and particularly in Moscow, were generally ill-informed, misguided, brainwashed, and uncouth. They laughed at Chinese. मजाक उड़ाते थे. किस का? They laughed at the Chinese, they laughed at the Vietnamese, and nearer the end of my stay, they were increasingly patronizing towards India. And that's what did it. Incident suniye. A student from one of the southern republic looked at me through blurry eyes after a couple of vodkas one day and said, "Hey, you Indians, you are all a bunch of coolies with your backs bent and your spines broken. You are a bunch of coolies. You are gutless, you are poor, you are weak, you are helpless. You would disintegrate if we were not there." And that did it. I used to box. What he did, he who looks like a saint like Rama, what he did was a younger Parikshit Sahni. I used to box in school. I delivered an uppercut, which is a cut in boxing. I delivered an uppercut to his unshaven Caucasian jaw that landed him out cold on the floor. I was suddenly made aware that I would remain a foreigner in Russia however long I lived there. I was and I would always remain an Indian. A leopard cannot change its spot. And that is the Parikshit ji, please bear me out if I am wrong, that these incidents mainly make you decide to leave that country and go to India. And if I am wrong, please correct me. Just one line answer.
You're right.
Yeah. Thank you. Talia.
You're right.
Thank you. What the drunken Caucasian had said disgusted me. I was convinced that we, the Easterners, had a lot to be proud of, in spite of what the West thought and said about us. The ensuing years have proved me right. China, India, Japan, Vietnamese, and other Eastern countries have made spectacular progress and are universally respected today. Mao was not entirely wrong when he said about the 21st century. What did Mao said? He said, the east wind will blow over the west wind. And that's what Mao was afraid of. And it did. After this episode, without much dilly-dallying, I decided to return home. Again, I prove myself right. After this episode, without much dilly-dallying, I decided to return home. I thought the best way to do so, without telling anyone about my impending departure, I didn't have the heart to tell Galia that I was going back to India for good. I now realize that was my biggest mistake. There was an ache in my heart, like he talked about Vietnamese friend whose one leg was amputated. He uses this word for his feeling. He says, there was an ache in my heart, but I thought it best to amputate this part of my life, however painful from my psyche, as quickly and as cleanly as possible. And then what follows will bring tears in your eyes. My final days in Moscow caused me much pain. I left Galia's flat one morning, lying to her that I needed to spend some days in the hostel. She didn't say anything. Once in the hostel, I packed my bag. I had bought my ticket to Mumbai and was to leave the very next day. I decided to do so without any long-drawn farewells or tearful partings. I left for the airport quietly the next day. Airport was all glass. I checked in my luggage and walked into the waiting lounge, feeling downcast and depressed. I had barely gone in and settled down to wait in the departure lounge when, upon glancing out at the glass walls of the terminal, I saw Galia standing outside, not far from the entrance. मैं फिल्म मेकर हूँ. आप ये शॉट ज़रा देखिए कि आप अचानक देखते हैं तो शीशे के बाहर वो खड़ी है जिससे सब तोड़ करके आप जाना चाहते हैं, जिससे आप कह के भी नहीं आए, झूठ बोल कर आए, वो खड़ी है वहाँ. अब आप देखिए इस सिचुएशन. But I checked in. There was something I had not, this was something which I had not expected at all. I had wanted to leave incognito. Evidently, Galia had somehow found out that I was leaving and had come to the airport to see me off. But I had checked in. There was little chance of making my way out to the departure lounge now, let alone the terminal. I decided to take chance. I went up to the cop in charge, pointed to Galia standing there at the entrance, and told him that I was leaving Russia for good, that I loved this woman who is standing near the entrance, and I wished to say a proper goodbye to her. The cop was good man. He allowed me to go out of the lounge and cross the terminal at the risk of losing his own job. His only advice was that I come back as quickly as possible. I went out and faced Galia. I felt guilty. I apologized to her for being so secretive about my leaving this country. all women find themselves so defenseless. Galia said, I knew it. I knew it about it all along. She said, you knew? Yes. Listen, my father wants me to write and direct a film in India. I could not say no to him. Galia says, I understand. I'm sorry, Galia. Galia says, one word, I will wait for you. And then we can go together to India. We can go to India together. No, you cannot settle down there in India. It will be very hot for you there. No, I will wait for you. She hugged me. She then looked straight into my eyes and said, I will wait for you. I heard the announcement for my flight on the loudspeaker, hugged her again, and went back inside. Galia stood rooted to the spot and stayed there. And I waved to her and exited to the terminal for the aircraft. I felt internally sad on the flight, but I consoled myself with the thought that I would return soon. Within a few months, my return to India, I was offered a role as an actor in a film. It was successful, so successful that my career took off. People forgot that I had been trained as a director and a scriptwriter. You also forgot, Parikji, what you learned in Moscow. I would say that that is one vacuum which I also feel. Within a year or two, at Dad's insistence, I got married. We were blessed with two lovely daughters. I had a home at last, a family to boot. There was permanence in my life. The emptiness was filled once and for all. I was a happy man. Memories of Russia faded away. I forgot all about Russia. And Galia, quite sure that she had forgotten about me too. But I was mistaken. Galia didn't. She thought I would come back. She thought I would come back one day. Like most Russian women, please ध्यान दीजिए इन लाइन पर. She thought I would come back one day, like most Russian women. When she gave her heart to someone, as she did so to me, she gave it entirely. The women of Russia gave their heart entirely when they love. Hence the remorse, what he says about Judaism. Hence the remorse, पछता रहा हूँ मैं. Hence the remorse, the regret, the repentance. And then comes these 4 lines. The moving finger writes and having writ, moves on not all thy piety nor wit, shall have it back to conceal half a line, shall have it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out a word of it. लिख गया वो मिट नहीं सकता, जो लिख गया वो मिट नहीं सकता. थैंक यू. परीक्षित जी, एक पारो देवदास की खड़ी रही वहां. बहुत खूबसूरत स्टोरी, और आपको सलाम करती हूं आपकी ऑनेस्टी के लिए. विथ सच ऑनेस्टी, विथ सच पायस वर्ड्स, आई एम डीपली मूव्ड. मुझे तो लग रहा है मैं गालिया की तरह वहीं उस एयरपोर्ट पर खड़ी हूं. शायद तुम लौटो, किसी दिन लौटो, ये मेरा विश्वास है.
शुक्रिया सर.
परीक्षित जी, अब आपने लिख दिया और
रमा जी ने पढ़ दिया और मुझे लगता है everybody in the hall is holding back a lot of emotions. I could see on the screen also and on the that you were also holding back your tears, I think. But जो रमा जी ने बोला, I think that is a very important thing. The honesty with which you have written the book, the honesty with which that you have, it's almost as if it's a confession, and you have not shirked away from confessing something which could probably somebody have questioned, but I think you were confessing to yourself, and you were hats off to you, sir. It's not easy to do such a thing.
That's what I learned from my father and from Bishop Sani Saab, that either you should write, or if you do write, either do not write, but if you do write, then write from the heart and write truly. That's what my guru in writing, having said, that the first line should be the truest line you can think of. Write truly. The two gurus I have in writing. One is Lev Nikolaevich Tolstoy, and the other one is Hemingway. And this is what I learned from both of them, that it should ring true, and it rings true only when you say it from your heart. I want to thank them personally and tell them that I'm really obliged for them to take the trouble of coming here and reading their stuff and going asking the questions and all that. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you once again.
परीक्षित जी, मैं सोचती हूँ the years from 18 to 24 are the most formative years for any young man anywhere in the world, and you had experienced the most beautiful time, and that time if it has and that time which has enriched you from so many incidents which I would say has given you the colors of life, has now given you the strength of translate them to your films and to your book. And the book, when we read it, at least when I read it in last 2 days, I have been to Moscow, I felt I am with you there as a young student and experienced the same kind of accelerating moment in an unknown country with so loving people. I think I would say that this is the best part of your life, and we all envy you that you could have such lovely moments.
Thank you very much. Those were the most formative years of our lives. I mean, we were growing up into men. So I suppose it was natural to behave the way we did.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Parikshit ji, और we will speak again. Thank you for your time.
एक बार जोरदार तालियां परीक्षित जी के लिए, और
सारी तालियां आपके लिए.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all the people on the stage.
Thank you.
And it's just been a real pleasure. This whole evening has been, and thanks to all the people who are sitting there, especially наши друзья. Я вижу, какие-то там даже русские там сидят. Big привет. A big hello to everybody, and thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Dasvidanya.
Dasvidanya. Dasvidanya is saying bye-bye.
Dasvidanya.
Everybody says Dasvidanya. Dasvidanya.
Thank you so much, first for the patience from everyone, and the effort and the time that you have given to us. Each one of you, Suraj ji, Ravindra Tripathi ji, Harshali, Rama ji, and Varun ji, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I cannot even imagine what you are going through right now, but we will sit and discuss that separately. So जी.
I would like to thank you, Ashwast and Savita Gupta, and the Russian Culture Center, which has been epitome of Indo-Russian cultural relations. I have come for the second time here, or maybe third time. Thank you for a very good experiment. All the youngsters who have come without knowing Russian culture will be now your new friends of Russia. Thank you. Thank you, Ashwast. Thank you, Varun. Thank you, Savita, and my colleagues, Harshali and Raveen and Surajji.
Thank you so
And
much.
thank you for being so patient with me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
अच्छा, एक बार चलती चलती जल्दी बता दो, मेरी अंग्रेजी ठीक थी?
जी.
तो जोरदार ताली बजाओ, सुनो। ये हिंदी के स्टेज वाले अब अंग्रेजी में पार कर रहे हैं, थोड़े दिन में रशिया में आ जाएंगे, है ना?
बिल्कुल,
I will
बिल्कुल.
learn Russian. Thank you very much.
रशिया दानिया तो आपने कहा ही है मैम, आप ज़्यादा दूर नहीं है रशिया.
क्योंकि
Dear
I think
panelists,
उनकी
thank
फिल्म
you
है.
so much. It was really a pleasure to have all of you here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. And today we have a lot of distinguished guests, and also I am really glad that we have the diplomatic corps through us. I would like to say hello, because it's for me it's the first time to meet you. Her Excellency, the Ambassador of Republic of Venezuela through us. And if you don't mind, please, can I give you flowers and to say thank you for coming here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency Capaya Rodriguez from Venezuela. I'm sorry that it took time for us to recognize the effort that you have put into coming here, because Alfredo Caldera has a dear friend, and yes, thank you so much.